Sup nerds, Tom here, and I'm going to talk to y'all about farming. Fields of Green, if you don't know, is sort of a re-implementation of another game that I really enjoyed called Among the Stars. It's a re-theming in addition to adding some new mechanics to it. If you haven't played either game, it's basically a drafting game where you're drafting these square cards and playing them in front of you. It's almost like you're drafting tiles because it's sort of a tile placement-y thing where the way you place them adjacent to the other cards will get you points in various ways. But the biggest difference between this game and Among the Stars is that it adds more stuff to it. Like in Among the Stars, it was drafting and placing them down, but there were two types of cards. There were cards that would get you points right now, and cards that would get you points at the end of the game. And here this adds another phase to the cards, where there's cards that'll get you points right now, cards that'll get you points at the end of the game, and a whole lot of cards that are in the harvest phase, which is at the end of every round. The game is played in 4 rounds, but there's a lot of cards that say, basically, here's some resources, water or food, you need to pay, or sometimes money, you need to pay those resources in order to get this effect, otherwise the card flips over and it's like an empty space. So that's one of the biggest things. And again, I think the other biggest thing is that there are now more resources, because in Among the Stars, it was just money and these like energy cubes. And here it's money, food, and water. So it's an additional thing. There's also these equipment tokens that you can get that'll sort of like upgrade cards that you play. That's another new thing. Again, at its core, and I said, I guess because I said at the beginning of the video that I really liked Among the Stars, I really enjoy this game, but it feels very similar to Among the Stars. They did a good job with the retheming. I feel like a lot of the stuff that they didn't just slap the farming theme on there. The water tower does make sense that, that has a 2 distance, if I build this, if this building requires water, well, it has to be at least, it has to be no more than 2 away from this water tower, because the water can only go so far. But the grain can kind of go anywhere because we're kind of shipping it around or whatever. And, you need fields and livestock early on, because that's how you start generating resources, and then you can start building these constructions and these buildings. Constructions kind of help you out, and buildings give you points towards the end. It is a lot more planning though, again with that harvest phase. So in Among the Stars, it would be a lot of, you're trying to gain more money and more energy cubes and stuff, but it would be a lot of, I'm going to play this card and it will, sometimes it will score me no points, but most of the times it won't score me as many points if I don't do this. Well, I want to end where it's surrounded. I want to end where it's not near reds, or I want it to end where it's the furthest away from the, my starting card. And that'll get me the most points. And here, with all of those harvestings that could flip over, you're hedging your bets a little bit. No, not hedging your bets, but you're taking more risks in that you're saying, well, I am going to do this by the end of the round, or else. Now, you can pay in the following round to flip the card over, and you have to pay for it and everything. It takes up an action. It's not great, but you can do it. And there is a lot more going on in this one than Among the Stars. It almost, obviously, if you're an experienced gamer, you'd be able to handle this game no problem. It's really not a complex or super deep game, but every once in a while I will use Among the Stars. I'll use like really light worker placement games or drafting games or really easy deck building games as kind of a intro. And I felt like Among the Stars was pretty intro-y because you just gotta, match up the colors and try and, keep in mind all the scoring things. Just like Among the Stars, this still has an awful lot of, stuff going on. You have to look at the whole board, the thing that you've built, and make sure that you're doing what every single card wants you to do and keeping tabs on that. More so in this than Among the Stars though, because again, it's at every round that a lot of the cards will trigger and not just end of game. And in fact, a lot of the times you don't get those end of the game cards until later in the game. So you notice they're kind of in different stacks here. That's because you actually separate the cards out by their color. And Among the Stars, you just mix them all together. And here you separate them out by their color. And when you go to draw your starting hand, you take from whichever piles you want. Obviously, it doesn't mean that if I take 2 buildings, 2 fields, and 2 livestock, I'm going to get to play 2, 2, and 2, because we still draft them. But you kind of are a little bit more in charge of the distribution of the cards that are getting passed around. And there is this little introductory mode is what they call it, where it tells you to get more, what to draw every single year from year 1 to year 4. And it has you draw more fields and livestock at the beginning and more buildings and constructions later on. And really that does make sense, because again, you need those other things earlier, and buildings are probably better later on. But you do have the freedom to take from whatever pile you want during the normal game. but I always feel like people don't really deviate too much from this. They'll deviate a little bit, but nobody's ever, if you've played the game, nobody's going to just draw 6 buildings on their first turn. Like, they know not to do that. So while this is interesting and it's cool that it gives you, more agency to do whatever you want, it doesn't feel like it really lets you do all that you want. Does that make sense? It's a little bit, it gives you a little bit extra control. It's almost like the illusion of you have more stuff to do, but really, ultimately, you don't, not that much. Equipment is pretty cool, but sometimes they help you and sometimes they really don't. You can upgrade stuff, and sometimes they're cool things, but a lot of times they're minor, or you'll put it in an area. Ooh, this water tower can reach all the way over here, and then all the cards you build, you're like, well, even though this tower can reach further, this card still gets me more points if I build it over here next to this water tower. Well, like I said towards the beginning of this video, I did really enjoy this game because, again, I love Among the Stars. Drafting games is one of my favorite mechanics, and I do just think it fits in so well. This is a bit more, since it's deeper, it's more for gamers. Among the Stars is a bit more for the newer people. Again, I tend to use it as a bit of an intro game sometimes, and this is just a bit meatier. This is the more of a gamer's game. You have a little bit more depth, a lot more choices and stuff. And if the component quality, I thought the component quality of Among the Stars was still pretty good too. But like these little wooden water tokens and wheat tokens, they didn't have to do that. I would have been fine with regular cardboard tokens. But hey, they went the extra mile. The cards are actually pretty thick. They're a little bit thicker than Among the Stars, I think. They're definitely sturdier, I'm overall really happy with this game, really enjoy it. And if you're wondering, well, Tom, which one do you like better, this or Among the Stars? Well, I'm going to do a comparison video between the two of them, so you'll have to watch that video to find out. Well, if any of what I was talking about sounds interesting to you, I'm going to go ahead and put a purchase link to this game in the description box down below. Go ahead and get yourself a copy, and hey, while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored. Well, if any of what I was talking about here sounds interesting to you, I'm going to put a purchase link to the... Well, if any of what I was talking about sounds interesting to you, I'm going to put a purchase link to this game in the description box down below. Go ahead and get your copy. God damn it.